No need to adjust your speakers. This is the Quiet Thunder. I guess we should say after that intro. And I'm Shooter, and we also have seen Schooley on the streets there. He's got a very low bandwidth, but that's what happens when you do the show from the parking lot. So the Scene Stamkos shirt, very appropriate. Thomas Schooley.
Look at this guy.
Look at this
Classy.
guy.
Classy fella.
How you doing?
Not liking the play lately.
No?
No, it hasn't been fun these last couple weeks being a Lightning fan. That's for sure.
Oh, it hasn't been that bad. Give me a break. January's over, so we're on to bigger and better things. And we got a great guest tonight. Sorry, we missed last week. That was my call. And yes, we were supposed to have Chris Dingman on, and I did talk to Chris. I didn't even tell you this. We will reschedule with Chris. I was dead. I had the flu. I didn't go take a flu test or anything, but pretty sure I had the flu. So sorry about canceling on the day of last week, but it's a new week. Got plenty of games to talk about, plenty of things to talk about, and a welcome back guest. So let's bring him on right now. Evan Klosky, 10 Tampa Bay. He is the sports director there. He's been here for a few years now, so you probably recognize him. And if you don't follow him, make sure you give him a follow on the socials. Evan, welcome back. We'll give you a thunderclap. There you go.
Thank you. I appreciate it as always.
All right, I'm going to give you the hardest question in the world to start off.
Oh, boy.
We haven't talked about hockey yet this season. I usually don't even bug you until, like, NFL is over because you seem really, like, into the Bucks. I know that, the Bucks are the big football team in town, right? I get it. But I want you to, if possible, sum up the Lightning season so far in one word.
That's a good question. In one word, I'll sum it up as close.
Mine would have been bipolar.
It's not bad. It just ultimately, though, I don't think they're that far off. I don't think it's necessarily coincidental that the team has not looked as sharp the minute that Moser went down. Not saying that really the team is suffering defensively speaking. I think there are some things there that are a problem, but overall, I don't think the woes have been purely defensive. It's mostly been offensive stuff in January bleeding into February. But having said that, there's a lot of things actually that I like about the team versus what we have seen the past couple of years, but they are missing probably two or three pieces for me to be beating the drum saying Stanley Cup contender. But that's why I'm seeing a lot of things that I like. I think they're close. And I think they're also close to having another one of those upswings this, towards the end of the season here. But, of course, that's going to coincide with Moser, who should be returning after the Four Nations face-off.
Yeah, and they're at that point in the season where there's just so many teams kind of stacked up right in that wild card spot where the Lightning are at, where to be sure that they're going to make the playoffs, they do need to string together some of these winning streaks. So you're right on there, and you're kind of aligned with what we heard from JBB. We weren't on last week, so we didn't really get to talk about, but he did kind of his mid-season presser last, I want to say it was Tuesday or Wednesday last week.
It was, I believe, last Monday.
Yeah, and he said, basically the same thing you said. Like, he seemed pretty happy with how the team was. Seemed like they were better than last year. I didn't get the impression that he was going to go all out and try to capitalize on the trade market that's out there. And I know a lot of fans don't think that the Lightning should right now. The other news that we heard that kind of corresponds with that is we've heard that the salary cap is going to take a pretty big jump the next couple years. So
Yeah,
That's
and
one thing that
that's
they got
big
to
time
figure
for the
out.
Lightning.
Absolutely. But what do you think of kind of his comments on, where the team's at halfway through?
Yeah, I think a lot of it I agreed with. What I like about Julian. Julian is he's a no nonsense guy, and that's not to say it like in a mean way, but he does tell it like it is, and I do believe that, especially for me in this position, when I talk with a lot of people in positions of power, in the sense of they have their hands and fingertips all over the decisions that are being made, sometimes you get a PR spin. A lot of times you don't necessarily get that with JBB. I don't know if he necessarily maybe said as much as I would like to say about the depth of this team and the bottom six and what they'll need to do to really add some scoring. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough go right now for the Lightning. I understand the frustrations, but I don't think they're playing bad hockey by any means. Their 5-on-5 stuff looks really good defensively speaking. Their 5-on-5 offensively speaking is average to below average, and the goaltending performance that incorporates also the backups has been pretty average this season as well. That's no knock on Vasi. Some of that stuff is brought down by Johansson and what he's provided. Certainly in the beginning of the season, it was really bad, but also Vasi with his expected goals allowed numbers is floating there kind of at 15, 16, and depending, if he has one amazing game, he can jump into the top 10. He's improved on those numbers recently. If he didn't give up that goal at the end of the contest against the Senators, I think he would have moved up those rankings a little bit. But overall, I think what JBB said, and even mentioning with Geeky and the rookie wall he hit, I thought that it was pretty spot on, and I didn't I didn't think that he was BSing us at all.
Yeah, and Jay Retchers in the chat. I was going to ask the same thing. Shout out to the Clorox. Who is the germ freak at the office there? Is it you? It's on your desk.
You got it. You got to see my. Oh well, first off, the flu was going around, Mister. Hey,
Yeah.
I had to cancel last show, so everyone got some of this at their desk. And clearly, by the fact that it's here at the corner, you don't even see all the crap that's behind here, which is why this is over there. So
There you go.
yeah, that I knock on wood, haven't gotten sick yet. So Jay, if you need
It's only a
some,
matter of time.
you have my number. You text me, I'll come hook you up.
Well, I hope you don't get it because it was rough last week for me. But yeah, if you're out there and you haven't checked out Jay's show, go check out the Jay Retcher show. He's usually on weekdays at noon, which is nice. I've been able to catch it sometimes while I'm having a little lunchtime snack. So go check out Jay's show. All right, so yeah, about goaltenders, I was kind of going back and forth with some folks last night on the game. Because they were calling out Vasi and, before the third goal, which was definitely a little bit of a softie. They were complaining about the first two goals. And really, if you go back and look at those first two goals, Lilleberg or Hetty were both on the ice at the same time for that first goal. Neither one of them can clear out that puck. It's right there, point blank. And one of the Senators jumps on it and scores a goal. You can't really blame a goaltender for that. He can't come out that far to defend. You need your defenders to clear that out. And then the second goal, there's no way he saw that puck. It's pretty hard to stop a puck when you can't see it. And you can't really blame the goaltender on that. And then we saw in the third period, Vasi make some amazing saves that, earned him the first star of the game last night. So
That toe save, the famous toe save that he's known for in so many years, that his legs, his toes have helped us win 2 Stanley Cups. And then you saw that flash in the game last night. So that was nice to see.
Yeah, I think that overall, certainly that game last night was not a game to complain about Vassie. I think the numbers, at least the analytical numbers, bared it out that he pretty much did what he was supposed to do. As I said, it would have been in an above average performance if it wasn't for that last goal there in the, with a minute 20 left. But yeah, it's funny. I actually texted Jay on that play because it actually Vassie hits Lilleberg's stick there, and you see it in the replay. Obviously, Lilleberg is kind of in between there. Hey, are you about to bring this puck into yourself? What are we about to do? There's just that millisecond of hesitation, and in that instance, that is not where you can hesitate. Just get the puck out of that area. Like, you just get it away. So you got to be an aggressor there, and I thought that was. Yeah, it was a passive play, and I would be curious to hear from John on what he would have to say, like what the teaching lesson is in that standpoint. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, I don't really blame Vassie for that one. I think somebody's got to jump in there and clear that puck out, and that person probably being Lilleberg in that spot.
Yeah,
But that's something the Lightning have had a problem with for a while is clearing out. Every season we seem to be talking about the same thing about making those clears, and you've got to get them out of the zone. And if you listen on the radio, and if you're listening to Michigan, he absolutely gets mad, and he's like, "Didn't clear it out," and he gets in there on it, and that's something they've always struggled with is clearing that zone. And I think it's because they try to make that transition the other way from their end so much that they need to start doing that transition from the center of the ice. Don't worry about doing it in your own zone. Just get it out and start going the other way.
Yeah, I just think part of that is working within their structure. I mean, John and the coaching staff has a belief on what they want to do, and it's highly successful. When they're able to kind of push pace on people and transition and move cross ice and do all these things and allow yourself to get the puck into your skill players as quickly as possible to get the other team on their heels, right? That's a fantastic way to play. In the past couple of years, I don't think the Bolts have had the personnel necessary to really execute some of this stuff. And going back to my first word of being close, I think they're pretty close to being the team that can really jump down some other teams' throats with this style of play. But when you deal with some of the back end talent there of going back to last year too, like Radish and Perbix and Lilleberg, and we can even throw in like Crozier and Carlisle's being brought up here. So there's a lot of guys who are seeing time, and you have to emerge as somebody who is dependable. I do believe, like, out of that group, Radish is probably, once he kind of elevated with Hetty, has certainly been someone to say, hey, I deserve to stick around. I mean, if we go back to last year in the playoffs, I mean, he was a healthy scratch. And I've really liked what I've seen from Darren this season. And, Lilleberg's a tough one. I think
Harder shot on the team.
Yeah, and I think that Lilleberg gets a lot of crap from fans. He seems to be, enemy number one as far as people who are going to complain about. And I totally get it, understand it. I hear you all. But that's the team is a little bit in a bind because he is their enforcer now too. So, if you don't play Lilleberg, who is going to be out there protecting the ice, getting into the scraps? And I know some fans don't really necessarily think that's an important part of the game. I get it, but in that locker room, it's very important to make sure you have that point person who's going to step up and throw hands if necessary and provide a physical presence and provide protection for some of your star players. And that's kind of the bind that they're in with Lilleberg out there of, I think he sometimes has execution breakdowns, and it comes at really bad times. I don't think he's probably as bad as what fans say he is, but certainly when you have some of those like brain fart plays that come up, maybe in a game, a sample size of like 10, if we pick out 3, 4, 5 plays, Usually Lilleberg is in that area. That second goal against that Ottawa scored in the Lightning. I think that's a play where Lilleberg missed his assignment there, got there a little bit too late, and there it goes. A point blank shot for Claude Giroux, and that's a pretty much a grade A in my book with a player of that caliber.
Yeah, and Giroux has a history of burning the Lightning. He's probably scored more goals versus the Lightning than any other team going back to his Flyers days. But yeah, I think that's the thing to watch over the next couple months is, what happens to Lilleberg, because he seems to be out there for a lot of these the goals that the other teams are scoring. I know there was 2 last night. We mentioned those 2. I don't know if he was out there for the third one. But going back,
that one was kind of a weird one. I feel like they scored that goal, then they put their foot off the gas pedal, and then just allow the centers just go right down the ice and poop.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the coaching staff does, because once Mosier gets back, and I see the question there from Orozco News about Mosier, I don't think the news has changed. I think the plan has always been to bring him back after the Four Nations tournament, which starts next week.
And I'll say this. I mean, this is why you got to listen to Jay's show. He had Dave Randolph on the yesterday before the Ottawa game. And Dave, I think mostly anybody who's been to practice. Now, I've been there. I've seen it myself, but I've only been there a couple of times with Moser on the ice. These guys are out there every practice. And he looks ready to go. But obviously the medical staff with the Four Nations face-off coming up, and you're going to have 2.5 weeks. I mean, why push it, right? Why push him back for 2 or 3 games here when why risk the re-injury when you have so much time off coming up? And I think that's probably the thinking here. So we'll see. I mean, the Lightning are obviously doing best for Moser, and I think the Lightning staff, medical, personnel, coaching, all of it, they're very good at being patient and seeing the big picture, while all of us kind of worry about the small picture.
Yeah, and they're giving a shot to, not just Lilleberg, who obviously is getting the most minutes for a young defenseman, but letting some of these guys come up. Crozier getting more minutes and Carlisle getting more minutes. So, you got to let these guys play to get some experience. But I do think you're right. And I've been going back and forth on, and this call comes off the heels of Connor Geekie getting sent down, which we'll talk about in a second. But my thought was, are we going to see Lilleberg as that defenseman that is the next one to go down and get his confidence back up? But just like you said, I don't think they can afford to just miss his physicality in the lineup, because these other guys that are in, they just don't hit like Lilleberg does. And other teams, they take note. That does really still matter in these games. So it'll be interesting to see what they do after Mosier comes back here in a couple weeks, and who's the odd man out, or maybe they start skating more games with 7 defensemen again.
Yeah, and I will say I'm not plus minus is a faulty stat, but I think that there are significant takeaways sometimes you can snip from it. Like when Ryan McDonough has a plus 21 on the ice, like that there's something there, right? That's an outrageous number, plus 21. And when Lilleberg is at -7, when not many on this team are in the minuses, that's a bit concerning. I mean, you think about the other D-men on this team, Hedman's a +6. He does play on the power play. I get it. And Moser was a +13. Chernak is a +13. Perbix is a +5. Radish a +2. So when you have all these blue liners out there logging pluses, and I got one D-man who's at -7, we can get into the nitty-gritty of some of this stuff, right? But that, to me, that's a signal, right? That there's something there. There is something there that it's hard to ignore. And, like
Yeah.
Hagel's a plus 16, and this man barely plays on PP and is on penalty kills. Like that, there's something there, right? I mean, we all know that Hagel's amazing, but like there are little snippets that we can take from the plus minus, and for Lilleberg, there are those hiccups and those uh-ohs that happen here and there, and they are, for a team like the Bolts who this season have really need to grind through some wins, that like one goal really can flip a game. And we saw it at the beginning of the year, how many games they couldn't even salvage the loser point because right there in the third period, they just gave up that one goal because they couldn't hold it down for like the final 5 minutes. And some of that stuff was a bit demoralizing earlier in the season.
Yeah. Well, even in January, we just haven't been scoring as many goals, right? So every single goal really matters. And Thomas, I know you want to talk, but I got to give Gabriel a shout out. I love this comment. Radish is like a high school pitcher who can throw a 97-mile-per-hour fastball, but has no control, which is 100% right. And he's been getting a lot of time on the power play too. So hopefully,
he's like Wild Thing Vaughn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he can get that accuracy down, he'll be dangerous.
Moser, when he went down, he's even a plus 13. So, it is Lilleberg with that one. And if Lilleberg's not in, people are then placing the blame on Perbix every time. It always seems we always have that fall guy defenseman every single year. It's always been some kind of fall guy defenseman. The other thing I would say with the defenseman is we don't have the scoring. Yes, you saw that assist from Lilleberg last night. But in the years that we have been much higher in points, we have been on better winning streaks, we have been in the Stanley Cup, we get points from our D-men. Our blue line has not scored that much, and that's starting with Hedman. You don't see Hedman's name as much this season as you had in past. And we talked to Eric Erelson, who said, once you get that C on your chest, that becomes a whole nother weight. And you're worried about also being the leader of that team, and we've seen that all throughout this year where we are not getting that scoring from the blue line. But when you look at what we're missing with Moser, 10 points in 27 games, 2 goals, 8 assists. Lilleberg only has the 7 assists, no goals yet, but he has the 7 assists. These are things that
I think Lilleberg's got 12 assists. At least what I'm saying.
Does he? Oh yeah, he was a -7.
Yeah, -7. Yeah,
-7.
So as far as the assists are concerned, it seems, I don't know. You guys let me know if you think that I haven't checked the stats on this. It feels like the blue line has done a lot more of firing pucks from out deep necessarily. Yes. And like we saw Lilleberg. I mean, a nice tip in from Glendening in that game. At least trying to execute it in that sort of fashion. Some of that stuff, I think they're getting a little bit too trigger happy out there because that's where the odd man rushes happen. But I think that in the process of becoming a more defensively minded team this year, that I think it seems like a cognitive effort to, not that the blue line shouldn't be involved in some of these things. As far as assists are concerned, those numbers are there. But as far as goals are concerned, it's just, outside of Hedman, I think there's a little bit maybe of a hesitancy to fully jump in on those plays in fear of being out of position and just really kind of waiting out the storm. I mean, look, the Bolts have like 5 bona fide scorers on this team. I think there's a little bit of an element of like, hey, like, we got people to put the puck in the net. You guys are back there to defend. Let's try to find that marriage. And, while this team is in a little bit of a cold streak, it feels maybe a little bit worse than what I think it would be. But I also think not having that scoring depth in the bottom 6 exacerbates the point that you bring up of like, the D-men need to help out now. And it's like, I don't think that's what they want to do, right? I don't think that's what John Cooper and company want to do within their structure. But because they're not getting any help from the bottom 6, it's forcing us to have thoughts of like, how are you going to score more goals when Cooch, Gensel, and Point are just not carrying the load along with like Hagel and Sorelli. Like Sorelli was on an all-world tear to begin this season, and it was probably unrealistic for him to be a 35 goal scorer, right? So he's gone cold a little bit, and he's also been a little bit banged up. So who's going to help Sorelli? Because he did his job early in the season, and no one has really stepped up in that spot. Nobody said, hey, it's my turn, right? It's just kind of everyone floating out there, and we get one here or there, but it's not consistent enough.
And the one thing I would say about the blue line shooting is that you got to keep the other teams honest. If you don't have where they're even going to attempt the shot, you're not, you're going to get that other team, the opponent, strictly smothering our 4 core players, our 5 core players. So you have to at least give the threat that you're going to have that. And when I just quickly looked, I want to say there's probably about 7 of these assists from different D-men where they have shot it and we've scored off the rebound from that. So, I mean,
I think they practiced that for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's some goalies that give up those great rebounds that you fire it hard on them, it's going to hit their pad, it's automatically going to come right out at you, and you're going to get it in there. And so, but when we've had success, there's always that threat that the blue line will shoot at you. And I think you're right where they don't want to get in that play, but that's because of some of the aging D-men that we have now, where they're not so quick to get back. And you got someone like Chernak who's constantly hurt, and I still don't think at 100%. And I don't think he's playing where he feels like he can really go balls to the wall against these other teams right now. And he can't get back quickly. You have McDonough who can't, although you saw some speed and jets on him last night. He beat out that icing and got the empty net goal.
Scored a goal.
And then Hedman, he's aging and losing his step too. So you've got to though keep the opponent honest and make them fear that your D might shoot, so they're not clogging up all around.
Yeah, and I think they're super careful, and you kind of alluded to that, Evan, as well. But what's a play that you'll see in the NHL tonight? You see a guy rip a shot as a defenseman from the blue line. It gets blocked by the other team. Then they're going back the other way with a breakaway or 2-on-1. And obviously very high scoring chances to score on those opportunities. So it's funny the stuff that we're talking about, like defense not scoring. Checked that box with McDonough last night. Bottom 6 not scoring. The tip in last night. And that's what it took to win the game by a goal. So it'll be interesting to see what the team does to address the roster, if they do anything, because they're in this situation where, hey, we've got a really good player coming back in JJ Mosier. Maybe that's the only move they make. I would say, knowing how JBB operates, we're going to get a bottom 6 or middle 6 forward probably as well. But I'm curious, Evan, do you think the Bolts stand pat at the deadline here?
It's really not in JBB's nature to stay pat. I mean, think about it last year. I would say last year's team, I saw red flags with the 5-on-5 play. And even then, he was like, I'm going to help out, right? So he'll do something, because that's what he does. Going back to the year where, they set all those records, he did nothing, and then it was a first-round exit. So I think since then, he said, I'm going to sleep at night knowing that I did everything that I could do for these guys. I think now, if I were him, I would love to find that bottom 6 player who I can bring in and have for a little bit of time. Maybe that's, a year and a half. Maybe it's a guy like, he acquires Moser, a dude who's a restricted free agent, so at least I have his rights. He did that with Jeannot as well. JBB has a very clear history of willing to pay for guys who he can acquire and keep long term. Brandon Hagel is a fantastic example of that. Maybe not so much, but if he's not going
Nick Paul.
Nick Paul, another fantastic example. He had Blake Coleman and Barclay Goodrow who were able at least to give more than a year, but he also will bring in a guy like Savard, Duclair, Dumba, people who can, not cost that much and just bring them into the fold for the year. So, there's a gap there. The Lightning are not going to go out big game hunting. That is not how they built Stanley Cup teams. That's not how they operate. They got their big fish. All right, they're all on the team. There are plenty of big fish in Tampa Bay. They don't need no more. They need the depth. And so I think that moving forward, the Bolts do not have an answer in the bottom six of someone who can score consistently. And I think if I were JBB, I would be willing to pay for that answer, especially if I can get ahead a little bit of that like if I can get someone who's on the books for the next couple of years, like that to me is like I would give up a premium pick for that, because then I can use all this money that I got and continue to spend the next 2 to 3 years. And pretty much the only one I got to worry about is Cooch, who will get his money most likely, but because of his age, it shouldn't be that much of a raise. If he continues to do what he's doing, he'll get his money, but that will be chump change considering what other teams are going to have to do with their players. And McDavid's going to hit the open market fairly soon, and he's going to get paid. So that's, to me, I think the sweet spot for JBB. I don't think he's quiet. I think he's going to be out there trying to find someone who can help the bottom six for beyond this season. I think that is goal number one. And if he can accomplish that, and depending on the years and whatnot, like I would, as GM, I would be willing to pay a good price to do it. Just because I think this team is not far away. I really don't.
Yeah.
Shooter, can you highlight Stephanie's comment here? Sorry, I keep looking over my shoulder.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on Chris's. I don't think I think the Lightning view Chernak still as a top 4 defender on the team. I mean, he's had obviously a ton of injury problems. He's always in and out of the lineup, but that's just kind of how the guy plays. So
and I certainly understand the Chernak stuff from the injury standpoint. And normally I would actually agree with, hey, they might want to move ahead of Chernak, considering what his injury history is. But look at his contract. I think he's signed through 2032, 2031, 2032. With like a $5.25 million cap hit. With the way the cap is moving up, like Chernak would essentially be a $2 million guy once the cap moves in 3 years. Like, you got him on such a good deal that even with the injury history and natural regression, he's going to be worth that contract, because you'll be paying him like he's a on your bottom pair and the blue line. So that would be the only reason why I'm hesitant on that Chernak point, is because the contract is so good. It is so good.
It's 5.2 a year through the 2030-31 season is his contract.
So I mean, come on now. The cap's going to be soaring, and you got a dude who you're going to have to figure out who's going to be his partner when McDonough eventually moves on here. But in the end, I think that you can work through it. And not to mention, he'll still be a valuable asset if you wanted to move him, because of his money and his price and the years you got him. If things ever go south, you have a piece there that can net you something significant in return. So I definitely don't see Chernak going anywhere.
And yes, Kim, we see your comment, and yes, it does depend what JBB offers. And Stephanie here, my question is really who's available right now. All these teams so close in the standings, and that's what you are going to have right now. You see these teams who you would have thought a couple of weeks ago were not even going to be speaking playoff, and here you have Detroit all of a sudden going balls to the wall, and they're rising. You have Columbus, who came out of nowhere, and now they're playoff bound. I really think you would have to go to a Western team looking at trades. And I think we're going to have to find someone that's going to eat some of that contract, at least for this year. And then with the salary cap going up next year, someone that we could sign that we do have a restricted and they retain some salary, maybe get a third team to play with there, retain some salary, and then be able to sign them next year. Because we're seeing in Carolina where they got Ratnan, now it looks like he's not re-signing in Carolina with the salary cap going up, and he's playing a Jake Getzel on them too. And now they're talking about trading him again, and trading him out of Carolina before the thing. If he cannot do a deal, they're not wanting another Jake Getzel and to look bad on the team. So they're talking about possibly seeing what they can get back and ship him around if he's not willing to take some kind of contract extension before this trade deadline. So it's going to be interesting coming up in these next couple months. I think you'll maybe see coming out of this Four Nations. I mean, and here's the thing is the Lightning cannot be looking for that Four Nations break. These 3 games before that Four Nation break are all 4-point games. Each game is 4 points for us. So we have to worry about these 3 games before that Four Nations and then let people rest up and get some breaks, get Mosier back on the backside of this and see how we're playing. And then we got, I think it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the trade deadline. After that, it comes back.
Yeah, it is a really tough spot coming up because, the Bolts pounced on Ottawa. The score, I thought, was much closer than how the game played out. I thought the Bolts were clearly the better team last night. But, both teams are going to have the same days off entering tomorrow. But they're in a really tough spot with Detroit. Detroit played last night, and I think they don't play again till Saturday, and they're waiting for the Lightning, who obviously have a game in between there. And that is like that Detroit game's a must-win. Ottawa's a must-win. And honestly, if you told me right now, hey, win Ottawa, win Detroit, lose Montreal, sign me up. I would take that deal right now. So I think the key is really going 2-1 here. And the preferable route would be Ottawa-Detroit. But, if you can just go 2-1, period, I think that you can build on that entering the Four Nations face-off, especially since the Bolts have 2 games in hand on the Red Wings. They're going to play 3 more times. The Red Wings only play once. So this is a stretch where you make up ground on Detroit because after this week, you're even Stevens. So, those are the things that I look at as well of, okay, this is where you got to get at least 2-3 on Detroit in those extra games you got. So
yeah, well, Detroit's won 7 straight now. So, but Ottawa was on a nice little streak as well. The Islanders were on a pretty good. I think they're still on that streak. We couldn't beat them last Saturday, but took it to overtime.
The Isles played their backup netminder in Florida. They lost, and then
did they?
They just beat the Golden Knights. So. The Lightning have also been in a really rough period of running into teams at the wrong time. Montreal was on a straight-up heater, ran it to them during that period. Detroit, same thing. These games, they didn't get the crappy version of Detroit. They're getting the new and improved version of Detroit. So, they had to play Minnesota twice when they were a much better team. And right now they're kind of, they don't have Krill the Thrill. So, there's a little bit of that happening, and so they haven't had puck luck recently. They haven't had a little bit of the scheduling luck. January was hell, so there's a lot of things. And
power play disappeared.
Yeah, and the power play, they did a tinker to the power play. It rejuvenated it, and now it's gone right back to where it was, where the issues were kind of percolating. So I will say the power play is generating a lot of great chances, but. Look at Gensel last night. Man, he should have had 2 to 3 goals and just off his stick the wrong way. And that's just sort of how it's been. So, for much of the season, the Bolts had I think I saw they were number 1 in finishing, even though they had maybe they were ranked 19th in 5-on-5 offense. And so when you see that, it's like, okay, you're not going to finish at this level with this kind of offense. Like something's got to give. And so we're seeing it give, and ultimately it's going to balloon a little bit back up. They're going to have a surge here where they get goals falling in. Might not happen until after the Four Nations face-off. Might not happen until the middle of March. I don't know. But they're going to have a stretch here where they score a bunch of goals, and we say, oh, there's the positive regression.
I've been saying that for 3 weeks.
And
now.
last Wednesday, I was at the live taping of the Block Party hosted by Greg Wolf and Coburn, and their guest was Sorelli, and they said to Sorelli that it seems like, and it's something Ty George says here, we seem to face goaltending that it's outstanding the night we play, and they said that to Sorelli, like the opposing goalies right now are averaging 7. They're expected to give up 7 more than what they give up against Tampa. And
that's in the last 8 games, mind you. I think the Bolts have ran into goaltenders who have saved like 13 goals above expected. Yeah, so it's just nuts. Like that is absolutely absurd to have that happen against you.
I still think it goes back to, we love those tic-tac-toe, one-timer, pretty goals, and we don't do enough of what we saw last night with the deflection that we had, or, that second Ottawa goal. There's no way Vasi could even see that. I don't feel like we do a good enough job just kind of getting those tough-to-get goals like that aren't as pretty, but maybe that changes their philosophy if they continue to only score 1-2 goals a game, which this team's definitely not used to. Yeah. Now, things will change up here as we hit this break. We mentioned we got 3 more games, and then we're kind of in uncharted territory here with this Four Nations tournament. We've got our coaching staff in it. We've got 5 players. It'll be interesting to see what happens with these teams, and obviously the best players in the league not getting this little break, and how hard they're going to compete in this thing, and see if it affects the rest of the season. Because, our guys that we kind of wish were having a little break, luckily we got 2 Russians that will have a break that are pretty good. But we still got 5 guys playing in this. And then you look around the league, and there's somehow the Washington Capitals, the number 2 team in the standings in the whole entire league, have 0 players in this tournament. Do you guys think that this is going to affect the play for the rest of the season, or it's just not enough games to really do that?
Unsure, really. It's a variable that we haven't seen for quite some time. So, look, it's the old rest versus rust debate. We have it all the time in the playoffs, and you're going to see a lot of that. So the Capitals, is it a bad thing that none of them are going to be playing competitive hockey for 2-ish weeks, right? Is that a bad thing? Is it a good thing that the core group of Lightning players will be still sharpening their skills against some of the best players in the world? Unsure. The fact is, these guys aren't necessarily, at least in the practices, and it might be a little bit rejuvenating for some of these players. You get to hang around new faces, mingle with new people, and kind of like break away from the day-to-day monotony of your system and what you do, and really,
unless you're from Canada.
Yeah,
then you're going to still the same monotony.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Which by the way, I'm going to be really pissed if Sorelli gets 10 goals in this tournament.
I'm wondering if Sorelli, I know, of course he wants to play for the Four Nations face-off, but he's banged up right now, and Sorelli's got to ask himself if the break might be a little bit necessary for him. So we'll see on that one. It seemed like he got it through last night. And there's still 3 more games left, and he was almost, on Saturday against the Islanders. He almost didn't play in that one. So he's teetering here. I would really hope that if push comes to shove, they really take it easy on Anthony going into the break, because he's one of those guys, just like Kucherov. He definitely needs a break. Like there are some dudes who just need like a week or 2 to heal.
I was thinking
Paul might be one of those guys.
I was saying that I was kind of shocked that more people haven't dropped out, especially since the league said there is no punishment like there is for the All Star game. But then in that taping with Anthony Sorelli at the block party, this is just below the Olympics for these guys, representing their country. This is something. And when you say about Sorelli, I think if he still can walk, he's going to play because he made a comment how this is something as a kid growing up in Canada. You want to wear that leaf on your jersey and represent your country. That's something you're instilled in as a kid that you want to do. And who knows, when we have the Olympics in 2 years, next year, if he gets picked for Team Canada, this is kind of an audition for that Team Canada for the Olympics in 2026. And then he also said he is excited to be skating with, I want to say it was Marner, because that's who he practices with in the off season. They go back and practice together. So he's excited to be with Marner. So this means a lot to him. So I think if he still can skate, he's going.
I understand all that, and I mean, for all these guys, representing their country, it means a great deal. And for Sorelli, you said all the right things, right? This is a huge opportunity for him. It really is, to put him on the world stage. He was one of those kind of last guys picked on the team. He really, with his play early in the season, forced his way onto this team. Obviously, he's a John Cooper favorite anyway, but it wasn't a hard sell considering how well he was playing. But, at the same time, if you're hurt and, you're sacrificing some health for the back end of the season for the Lightning, it's a really tough spot. It's without being able to know what Sorelli's going through and what his injury is. I just hope he takes good care of himself, and hopefully there's a good plan in place for him to get some rest in this process and make sure he's not exacerbating whatever he's got going on.
Yeah, and I don't think he's going to be getting McKinnon numbers during this tournament as far as playing time. So
exactly.
No, and Ty said, you don't risk your contract that's in the NHL to play for your country. Some players I think would. Not someone like Sorelli, but I think someone that might be an alternate or something with some of these injuries coming out.
Oh, they're all raising their hands. Everybody wants to play in this thing. These guys want to go.
Hockey and soccer are probably the two sports where playing for your country just means something so significant to you growing up that it's sometimes tough for us to understand the importance of that. And we live in a Lightning bubble, and like winning the Stanley Cup with the Lightning is so important. But for so many of these players growing up in Canada and Sweden, Finland, playing for your country is like the end all be all. Like that, that is sort of like things that you just dream about. So it's tough. It's not like John Cooper and Julien Brisebois stepping in saying, "Hey, Anthony, we're shutting you down." Right? They understand what this means for Tony, and there's a reason why the best players in the world who are invited to play in this tournament, as far as countries are concerned, sign up for it and are ready to go. Right? Nobody's just taking the free vacation here. So that's it's a delicate spot, and without knowing what Tony's going through, and hockey players, you'll never really truly know until the end of the season. Tough for me to really have my 100% opinion on the matter.
And like there's something you just said, where you correct yourself about the best players on the ice, and then you said for these nations, and that's something we have talked about before, and I disagree with. I really think this should have been one of those North America versus the world game again, because as much as I'm going to enjoy this tournament, you do not get 100% of the best players in the NHL in this tournament, with likes of Kucherov, Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, Ovi, all missing out on this. they could have done some kind of federation NHL team and then added in another country, Slovakia, Czech, one of these other countries that you probably could have filled some from. So I like the old format. If they're going to do this, they go back to the world versus North America, and so that you do get the best players in the NHL all playing at the same time again.
Yeah, I'd imagine if and when they do this again, that they'll figure out how to get these Russian players in there. Because you're right, you don't.
Yeah,
have
I just saw the NHL. The NHL came out yesterday and said the Olympic Federation came out and said they are not there yet to grant Russia an opening into the Olympics yet. So they're going to have to play under an Olympic Federation flag. So hopefully down the road we're not so political and we're able to get these people in here.
It's a touchy subject, Thomas Schooley. That's a whole different side of the newsroom.
Yeah, it's part of the newsroom where they shut down the lights on me.
Well, we're doing the show in the dark, so
yeah, fair enough.
You had to join us. All right, I have one more question for you, but we got to let some people know. Saturday, we got that 1:00 game in Detroit. That game is not here in Tampa. You might have noticed that I've gone live for a couple games where you can kind of watch along with us, Barstool Sports style. Obviously, we can't broadcast the game, but you can sit here and watch us laugh or cry or throw stuff. For the first time this season, we actually have done this before, but it's been a while. We're going to do that on the road. We're bringing the gear, and we're going to go down to the Dignitary Cafe in South Tampa. That's Ian Beckles' spot. If you know Ian Beckles from his Buccaneers days in radio, you can still catch that guy on the radio. And if he's there, he's going to jump on too. I'm going to make him, even though he's a Canadian, but doesn't watch a ton of hockey. Supports the Bolts though. So I'm going to make him come on. We've also got some other guests that are going to join us on that show. Thomas Schooley says he's coming. So I think it's going to be fun. So tune in. We'll be live on all the channels during the game. Put the game on and watch with us. And if you're in the area, if you're in South Tampa, you are more than welcome to come and join us. Just keep in mind, we only have 4 mics, and we're going to be sitting here watching the game on mic. So if we can't stop and come talk to you, don't feel like we're being rude. But, during intermission and stuff, we'll be able to stand up and talk and stuff like that. So just want to throw that out there. If you want to watch the game with some friends, we'll be broadcasting live. Or if you want to come down and join us, you can come join us at the Dignitary Cafe and get yourself. If you never had any kava, have some kava for the first time.
Or kratom.
I'll have some with you. I'm not a big kava nor kratom anymore guy, but I'll indulge a little bit on Saturday while I'm at the spot. So yeah, do that on Saturday. And next week, I don't even think I discussed this with you, Thomas. We are taking off. We don't have any games, so we got 4 Nations starting up. I think it's Wednesday next week. I might do some broadcasts during the USA games. So I don't know if you'll be free, Thomas, during those games. I think the first one's Thursday night. Maybe if not after those games. But I put out the poll a couple weeks ago, and the winner of the poll was Cover Team USA, which is the team I will be cheering for. So we'll do something along the lines of the tournament for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll be back doing the same thing on Wednesday nights after the tournament in a couple weeks. All right. One last question. We got the shocker. It was a shock to a lot of people yesterday. Connor Geeky, the rookie sensation, started off like a firecracker, has been sent down to Syracuse. Really the first time he's been in Syracuse, because he made such a great impression here in training camp in the preseason, earned himself a spot on the roster, but
and dramatic effect.
It was so excited he went offline.
That was weird. Anyway, just like Connor Geeky, I just almost got sent down to the minors. Evan, were you surprised by this move?
Not surprised, no. Even Julian mentioned during the fireside chat that he had with some beat reporters that he's been hitting a rookie wall, and his size, I think, is getting to him. He is a big dude. I mean, he's 6'4" or whatever. He's a big dude, but he's not built yet. He's 20 years old, and I think that's starting to accumulate on him. Since the new year, I think he had 2 points, like a -3 rating. He at the beginning of the year he was really still a plus player on the ice when it was happening. But you got to remember, this is a dude who they acquired who was a high-end offensive prospect. And he's not putting the puck in the net. He's also been averaging like a shot per game in his very early NHL career. And he's not on this team to be like a forechecker, right? Like he's on this team. It's a good part of his game, something that he's exceeded expectations, so on and so forth. But he's on his team to score because he has that ability. Like he really is a dude who, when you look at his ceiling, like you would hope that he starts finding the back of the net 20 plus times a season. Like we'll start there. And he just doesn't have that juice right now offensively that he did entering the year. And you try to throw him with like Hagel and Sorelli, and they make a lot of people look really good. And the key is that he really should be helping the bottom six right now score some goals. And I think moving him down there, try to get his swagger back, try to get him being a little bit more scoring focused, maybe a little bit of a mental break and just a physical break as well from what this first stint in the NHL has been. It probably will do him some good. So he exceeded expectations by making the team. He exceeded expectations by his play early in the season. Now you got to ask yourself, is the development right for him to stick it out and just like continue to go through this period of time where it's just getting kind of a little bit uglier? Or is it nice for him to say, hey, let's get you back down and reset a little bit? And I think that that's a fine strategy with someone who's 20 years old and someone whose ceiling is as high as his is. So not surprised. I would be very surprised if we don't see him again this year. And hopefully after, a little stint in Syracuse, especially during the Four Nations stuff, he can start finding his way back onto this team, because that scoring depth that is necessary for this team, the Bolts are not going to be able to fix all that at a trade deadline. I think they're naturally going to have to call him back up to say, hey, let's bring that scoring up. We need you there on that third line. We need you to help put in some goals for us. So, I certainly I'm not down on him at all.
Coop said it best when Coop said, "We're playing for the next 15 years, not the next 50 games for his career." And when you start seeing someone go in all the different lines, we already have someone like that. His name's Mikey Eisema. And when you start seeing him going in between all the different lines and he's still not catching on, you have to send him down there. You got the AHL right now is on their all-star break, so they're getting ready. They'll be coming back playing for their second part of the season. So it's a perfect time to send them down there. We got the break. He'll get some when they come back from the Four Nations break. He might get a call right back up right after that Four Nations break. It might be a short stint, but yeah, you have to send them down there. It's kind of like the Connor Shearer effect. I mean, there was nowhere for him, and then you send him down to Syracuse, and he's buried in Syracuse. But I don't think where Sherry's not really going to come back up on this team. I think we see Geeky up here.
Yeah.
Look, we got their goalie
back. And I think if they make that playoff run, I think he's part of that team. I think.
And Stephanie, I would, yes.
I think Lightning fans with Geeky, we were all so excited with how well he played right out of training camp and preseason and made the team. And he's this exciting new prospect. He's a big guy. He's a big personality. But I think sometimes we got to step back and take a look at the reality of, and rookies, he's ranked 17th in scoring. He's got 6 goals, 6 assists. So as far as this rookie class, he's he's towards the top of it, but he's not even a top 10 guy in scoring, which is really
No one's going to touch Macklin Celebrini over there in San Jose.
well. It's the guy from Montreal, the freaking defender who's racking up the points. Hudson.
Oh, Hudson, yeah.
He's an unbelievable player. But yeah, you got some really good rookies, and Geeky's going to be there. He's going to be a good NHL player. He's not there yet, so I don't think it's going to hurt him. And I do feel like the whole break coming up does play into let's let him go skate, score some goals down there, beat some people up. I mean, I've noticed throughout this season, Geeky seems to be on the wrong side of a lot of hits. He seems to get himself.
Yeah, he had a tough hit on Saturday.
Position.
And then and we get down the road at the end of the season, you wonder, will the Bolts maybe give a call to Michigan State and say, "Hey, Isaac Howard, we'll take you now." So he's been playing phenomenally in NCAA, really since kind of his national. I mean, he's played with the national team and he's done some really good things there. So you kind of wonder if maybe in a similar fashion to the way that Toronto called up Matthew Nyes right after he played in the Frozen Four, would they maybe do something with Isaac Howard if they're making that playoff push and they want to add someone maybe on like a 4th line type of deal? I don't know.
Yeah. Talk about a change of scenery for him. What a difference it's been for him to go over there. The other call I guess he could get is, hey, come over here because we're sending it over there.
Yeah. So there's some options. They got some options, but ultimately step in the right direction for Geeky. And I think even Nick Paul said it took me five times to before I finally stuck in the NHL. It takes a while, and so you give him credit for making the team. You give him credit for everything he's done up to this point, and use it as a reset. Use it for the right reasons, and if you do all the right things, he'll be back up. So that's what it comes down to.
Okay, really last question this time. Anything hit the newsroom about Nick Paul, who we saw leave the game last night and not come back?
I don't really know the severity, but he was at optional skate today. So will he play tomorrow? Unsure. But does it seem like it's something that's really, really bad? Not so much. So who knows when, but it does seem like very much a short-term thing. And I will be heading to practice tomorrow, so we'll find out from John Cooper after practice, which that'll probably be around 11 o'clock.
And how can the folks follow you to get those updates?
Yeah, you want to go to at @eklosky WTSP. You can see the spelling there at the bottom of the screen, and just add WTSP, remove the van. And also you can head to 1010bay.com, 1010bay Plus app, and ultimately send any questions that you have my way. Love engaging and interacting on Twitter, X, whatever, as long as everyone's fairly appropriate. So I think that's the best way to reach me. And now that football season is here, there's less time really getting pulled in the direction of the Buccaneers, and there will be this is really it. This is where we kind of put our foot down on the gas pedal.
They're signing Charlie Strong.
Yeah. He's back. Well, I guess he was a Tampa resident, so he was always here, but he's back.
Yeah.
That was a nice signing by the Buccaneers. But the coaching signing, I should say. But ultimately, at least from us in our department, right, every team has their time where we focus in on them. And this stint coming in is where we really sink our teeth into the Lightning. And, we from the preseason all the way to now, it's, we're watching all these games, so we know what's going on. But, we're able to show our faces more and be at more practices just because we're naturally not getting tethered into multiple different directions.
Well, someday we'll see you up in the press box. I don't think either one of us has been up there recently, and I don't think either one of us have been to too many games in January. So I was messaging you last night, like, I'm going tomorrow. I don't have tickets yet. I think Sticks is going to come through for me, but I'm
You
going.
can sit with me if you want.
All right, maybe we'll see. I've got a lead on some tickets, but I'll be there no matter what tomorrow night. I think tomorrow night's going to be a awesome game. Usually when teams play each other twice in a row, usually a little tussle. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a playoff type of feel. I think that's good for this team. My fear is this team's going to start like finding it and then poof, 2 weeks off. So but that'd be a good problem to have. Let's see that happen.
Yeah, I'll take a couple wins here against some division rivals, especially with our record within our own division right now. All right. Well, you know where to find them. Evan, thanks a lot for coming on again and spending some time with us. If I can give you any advice after a really bad week for me last week, just go lather yourself in that Clorox before and after.
There we go.
Games you go.
Got plenty for everybody out there.
Because whatever's going around, you don't want it. For the record, if Dinger, I was going to still do the show if Dinger still wanted to do it. I would have been on the show sick as hell. But we'll reschedule with Chris Digman. And don't forget, join us on Saturday. It's a 1 p.m. puck drop up in Detroit. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So join us in person if you can. If not, just pull us up on your phone or your computer and watch the game with us on Saturday.
Real quick, something we didn't talk about was the new backup goalie that we got. We signed him to a 2-way deal. He's been killing it over in Syracuse. Actually, we've had Tompkins as the backup it's an undisclosed injury right now for JoJo, but we've had Tompkins in. This goalie Halverson actually beat out Tompkins for the starting job for the Syracuse Crunch. So it isn't, and he's right now has got a 12-7-7 record, 918 save percentage, 2.20 goals against average, and 4 shutouts in 26 games for the Crunch this season.
All-star in the AHL.
He was actually drafted by the New York Rangers ahead of Shesterkin. So, yeah, he was drafted in the second round by the Rangers the same year Shesterkin was drafted, and played 1 game for the Rangers coming in for the Henrik Lundqvist when they pulled him in one of the games. So I would expect he gets one of these starts in this back-to-back with either Detroit or the Canadiens.
I'm very interested. John hasn't tipped his hand on what's happening with Johansson. He's pretty much was like, we don't know if he's like day to day or week to week yet. But I'm mildly concerned with Johansson. That there could be something serious there, and that's why they had to make this move. And obviously Halverson's earned it. He's a fantastic story. My goodness, really, was pretty much out of the game, was on a farm somewhere, and
had surgery and was a farmer last year.
Yeah, tons of injuries, kind of, pushed his way onto that ECHL team and just fought his butt off to really get back to this position. So I thought Jonas had been doing better, but certainly backup goalie has not been a strong suit for the Lightning this season, objectively. So,
yeah.
And congratulations to Rick Beckham and Brian Bradley, who officially got elected into the Tampa Bay Lightning Hall of Fame. I was there for that. It's very kind of disappointed in the way the Lightning did it this year rather than the previous years where we've seen former players. This one only included 6 former players came back for this, where we've seen the dinner and the whole big presentation inside the arena. This was little fanfare for them. Matter of fact, it was changed. It was originally announced it was going to be the 29th. Then they just did it on the 1st. And when the Lightning tweeted it out that it was the 1st, they actually still had the 29th listed as the day of the game. But then the pitcher had the 1st, and then they quickly changed that. So it was, and when questioned about it from someone who's familiar with the team, came to me and said that it was kind of like the fans have gotten younger. So a lot of the fans don't know the old teams. So that's why it was kind of a lower fanfare this time with the players coming back. But then I really thought, is Brian Bradley and Rick Peckham going to sell the tickets that Marty St. Louis and Vinny LeCavier did for their dinner? As much as I think Rick Peckham was probably the best ever to ever call a game for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Brian Bradley, and Brian Bradley, the first ever All-Star for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and definitely has some history here. They wouldn't have sold out what the other classes have done.
Yeah, that's probably a fair assessment.
Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, they're not all gonna be Marty St. Louis and Vinny LeCavier entering it.
As Stephanie was saying, there was a dinner on that Sunday, I believe, at Fleming's.
Yep.
I think what we're gonna see is the fanfare for that get a little bit less and less every year, and eventually they'll probably go down to one player.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, there's a little bit of that you got to find. You got to start adding the people, but then you're going to have the Palots and the Tyler Johnsons and the Alex Killorns, and we're going to start getting. We're going to start. Javi Bull. They're going to start getting into that golden era of where a lot of the Lightning fans, I think, really grew in love with this team. I mean, we're in the golden era of Lightningdom, and I think that when we start having that avalanche of players just going in, it'll boom back up. But I mean, we're still very much in the middle of just. I mean, when you go back,
what did you think about that Century team, the first and second?
So I think really the one debatable one was Bishop,
second string goalie.
Yeah, Bishop or Javi Bullen.
Yeah, I think that was. I think that was overall. I thought they did a pretty good job.
Yeah. I might have switched St. Louis and LeCavier from first and second. You had St. Louis in the first one and LeCavier in the second one. I might have switched them between the two. But yeah,
you put LeCavier on the first over St. Louis?
Yeah.
Oh, you're smoking something.
But definitely Javi Bullen definitely should have been in there besides Bishop. I didn't get that for being the second goalie there.
Yeah, I think that was the one. But overall, I mean, as far as those lists are concerned, for me to have like maybe one, that's pretty good. Especially because the Lightning had so many good players. I mean,
yeah, I agree. I think it was that second team goalie. That's the only thing they really might have messed up. And did they? Because I remember Ben Bishop setting a lot of records that Vasi has already taken.
Yeah, I don't think, as I say, it's debatable, but is it like an atrocious call? No, I don't think so.
Yeah. All right, Schooley, can we end the show now? I know you don't like endings.
I got to go back to work as soon as this over.
Well,
so
I only tried to end the show 18 minutes ago. So, if you want, I can do it now. If you got anything else, any egregious calls on Vinny LeCavier being better than Marty St. Louis?
Hey, you see, Kim said she agrees with me there. But we know Kim.
Hold on, I got something for you guys. Where's my guy?
Are you kidding me? What is going on?
There you go. Straight from Espo's mouth, right? I think he picked those.
Number one bullshit.
You gave Wisna to somebody else. Number one bullshit. Oh, number one bullshit.
All right. I can go all night with the sound effects, but we got to go. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Hopefully we'll see you on Saturday before the break here. And then, like I said, we'll be covering some Team USA. on this channel. But we'll be back to our normal coverage after the Four Nations ends. Thank you again, Evan, for jumping on.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys,
Thank you,
everyone,
guys.
tomorrow night back at Amalie Arena, we hope. Until then, this has been We the Thunder. Don't forget to be the Thunder.
That's it?